Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, June the 29th, 2021. It is currently 8:52 a.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from Victory Baptist Church, located right here in Ovalo, Texas. I hope you're having a wonderful day. If you're listening to us live, feel free to participate in the chat. Hit the little chat icon, and you can offer questions, thoughts, whatever you would like to share. If you are not listening to us live this morning, you're listening to us some other way, somewhere else on the internet at some other time, please always feel free to email me at newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com. And that email's been used now for what, 20 years, 22 years? It's been the same email address. So feel free to contact me with questions, thoughts, disagreements, encouragement, discouragement, anger, whatever you would like to share. Always feel free to do that. But are you ready? It is Tuesday morning. I have been awake pretty much all night. Okay, I had to get up at 3:50 a.m. to take my daughter to the airport. She was flying back to Boston, so I did that. And then I did try to get a little bit of sleep, but I'm here. So my voice has not completely woken up yet, right? So, all right, voice, we can do this. But even though my voice is not awake, I think the rest of me is. Hopefully you are awake and alert, and you're ready to participate in a Bible study exercise. Now, remember, the Bible study exercise is done with one specific goal in mind: to move you from a passive listener to an active student. Too many times, people grab their mobile device and just listen to a sermon, listen to a Bible study that someone else did, but I want you studying the Bible for yourself. So the Bible study exercise, I try to move you from being just that passive listener to picking up a Bible, a notebook, a pencil, some reference tools, and digging into the scripture. I do this by doing some of the teaching, and then I will give you some assignments. Sometimes, even in the teaching, I will approach it like, well, could it be this? Well, I'm not so sure. Like, I may not know the answer, because I'm trying to get you to answer those questions and figure some of those things out. And we found ourselves in the last Bible study exercise, this is part 2, we found ourselves in Psalm chapter 37. Now, we have looked at Psalm 37 many times, but we ended up there again. And so this time we're working our way through the Psalm. And we've already received email with some people who have already participated in the Bible study exercise, sending me their work. That's always encouraging. Always feel free to do that. Now, of course, you don't have to. But by sending me your work, here's the benefit. First, it benefits me, all right, because I learn from you, all right? Again, any teacher that's not willing to learn, well, we probably should stop being a teacher, right? We continue to learn, as not only in preparing to teach, but then engaging with those we teach. So already, thank you for sending that to me. 2, I think by actually doing the work, obviously, that's one of the goals here, is to get you to be an active student. I think that's better. But by sending it to me, then I can maybe, and I try not to do this, but if there's something I think maybe, whoa, that's really wrong, then I can challenge you and try to exhort you and encourage you to rethink that particular perspective and try to, help sharpen your Bible study skills. So that's the goal here. So are you ready? Psalm chapter 37. Now, I'm going to begin. Now, what we're going to do here in a minute, we're going to, what we'll do, we'll just go to one of the emails that I received, because one of the emails I received really they did a lot of work, and I want to share it. And I'll use what they sent to kind of do a review. So I'm going to kind of use their notes here to try to do a review, plus share what one of the listeners discovered. Now, if you agree or disagree with maybe, for example, they offer an outline to Psalm 37. Remember, I told you that Psalm 37 is somewhat a difficult chapter to outline. Well, I'm going to give you their outline and you can compare it to yours, or you can send me an email going, well, I don't know if I completely agree with their outline. Here's the reason why. By all means, outline. Just remember from your outline, this is just a number one rule, all right? This is very, 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 very important. And I guess I should refer to the people who listen to the Bible study exercise as students, not listeners, as students. So students, always remember, in your outline, do not offer an interpretation. Your outline is about observation, right? What you're trying to do in your outline is you're observing what's on the page right there in your Bible, whatever you're outlining, and you're simply observing what's there. You're not trying to interpret it. You just bring that observation over and place it on paper in a very organized way, in an outline form, so that you can better observe. So to try to come up with your outline requires observation. Once you write down that outline then serves as a help in continuing to observe what's in the text. Remember, you can do no interpretation until you have first done observation. The quality of your observation will determine the quality of your interpretation. It's very basic, very simple. I know I repeat it a lot, but trust me, there's always new listeners who need to hear it. But this is what was sent to me, all right? So Psalm 37, part 1, all right? They did this on June the 27th, all right? So they even gave me the date that they did the work. All right. It's like getting a paper from a student. All right. I love this. All right. And then questions. Who is the author? Now, this is what they state in their New King James Version of the Bible. It indicates a Psalm of David with no reference of doubt. So in the New King James Version of the Bible, it says a Psalm of David right there, kind of as a chapter heading. It says a Psalm of David. That's interesting because, as we've already indicated, if you kind of go back in church history and you start getting into a lot of commentaries, there are some commentaries who raise question about Psalm 37 not being, or at least raise questions about David being the author. Many people just assume that he is, but if you start really looking into commentaries, you're going to find many that calls that into question and will say that we cannot be dogmatic about the author. But the New King James and a number of other translations, they have a chapter heading that says a Psalm of David. The Bible that I have right here does not have any chapter heading for Psalm 37. Hang on, let's do a little, I'm going to look here. I'm going to pick up this Bible. I'm going to pick up this one. Psalm 37. Oh, yes, this one, now both of these are King James, and this one says a Psalm of David. This one says a Psalm of David. So it appears that the majority of people today are a majority of Bibles and publications today just state that David is the author. Now, the Bible that I'm holding here is the Filament Bible. Now, if you know anything about the Filament Bible, it's really interesting the way the Filament Bible works. So I'm going to do this. I got to pull up the Filament app. The Filament Bible is connected to the Filament app. And do I have the Filament app on this iPad? If I don't, oh, here it is. Okay. What you do is you open the app. Okay. You open up the Filament app. You open up your Filament Bible. And on the top of the Bible, there's a little symbol. What you do is you click the little camera icon and you put your camera of whatever mobile device, and you put it right over that symbol. Come on. Here we go. All right, no, I don't want that. Okay, hang on. All right, here we go. Do it one more time. I wish you could see this, but you open the camera, you put it right over the symbol. There we go. And it gives you the page number. You hit go, and it opens up all kinds of notes and reference tools. It's awesome. It's called the Filament Bible. If you want more information, I did an entire podcast about the Filament Bible. You can find it if you go to theologycentral.net, go to episodes, search for Filament Bible, and you can purchase the Bible. It's relatively cheap. The app is free, and all of the content on the app is free. So I'm going to go to study. I'm going to go down here to Psalm 37, and let's see what they have to say here. They don't offer anything about the author here. I'm not going to give anything away here about what they say as far as notes. They don't offer anything here. Nope. So they don't say anything about the author. So I thought that's interesting. And again, Filament, if you're looking for it, Filament is Filament. Filament. Again, you purchase the Bible, all right? The Bible is not that expensive. And then on each page of the Bible, there's a little symbol right next to the page number. You open up the Filament app, you put your camera of your mobile device, iPad, phone, right over the little symbol, and then it will open up to all kinds of resources. Well, I looked at all the study notes there, and they didn't say anything about the authorship. They didn't say it was David. They didn't deny that it was David. So they make no assumption about it. Again, some commentaries say we cannot be dogmatic about it, but it's just interesting that that's what he found. And then I just looked at two different Bibles. Now, in the Filament Bible itself, the actual physical Bible, it does say a Psalm of David. So it's assumed there. So just interesting. Now, you may be asked, well, why would you spend time having us consider that and think about that? Because here's the goal. Remember, one of the reasons the church exists is to equip people so they're not tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine. Look, if there are multiple opinions on something, then the best way to keep your people from being tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine is to address all the multiple opinions. Let them know, hey, if you're studying Psalm 37, you may find a lot of disagreement over who the author is. Let's look at it. And here's where you can look and do your own research. So this person did a little bit of research, and that's what he found. Now, in his ESV study Bible, it says this. Now, this is interesting. New King James indicates the Psalm of David with no reference of doubt. The ESV study Bible says of David, highlights that it is a wisdom psalm written in the acrostic pattern, but that this one is imperfect, which is true to form for Davidic acrostics. S is verses 27 to 29, and there's no an grouping after it, or an, I think is how you say it is the Hebrew way. Verse 30 begins with P. So their argument is it is David, and one of the reasons we know it's David is because it's an imperfect acrostic. I guess are the acrostics given to David, are they all imperfect? That's interesting, but at least they offer some kind of justification. So they go on to say, without you mentioning it, I would have no reason to think that this psalm was not written by David. Okay, well, I don't want to be the person to create doubt and confusion, but I just want you to be aware that, yeah, if you start looking at some commentaries, you're going to find many going, we're not so sure that it's David, where everything else around you are like, no, it's David. That always drives me crazy, but I like to know all the different opinions there. Now, in this particular case, here, let's stop right here. Again, Bible study exercise. I want you to put your thinking caps on. Sometimes, all right, now I want you to think about this. Sometimes it's important to know the human author because knowing the human author can offer great insight into how to interpret the psalm. So let me ask everyone this. I want you to put your thinking caps on. When it comes to Psalm 37, do you think knowing the author would be of great significant help in interpreting the psalm? Or do you think not knowing the author, it does not hinder our interpretation of the psalm? Now, even if we knew the author, now here's the thing. If we knew the author, right, let's say we know it's David, if we could connect it to some situation in history, would that be beneficial? Would that be helpful? We do know this. The author of the psalm, it appears, if you look at verse 25 and 35, Psalm 37, verse 25 and 35, I think we can say this. So, because the psalmist seems to identify something about himself. The psalmist here seems to identify something about himself. Psalm 37, look at verse 25. I have been young, and now I am old. Yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. The psalmist here, the author, seems to indicate that he is old. Now, when he says old, how old? So if this is David, would this be David at the end of his life, reflecting on lessons he's learned throughout his life? Maybe. If we go to Psalm 37:35, Psalm 37:35. That was so the first one was Psalm 37:25. The second one is Psalm 37:35. I have seen the wicked in great power and spreading himself like a green bay tree. Yet he passed away, and lo, he was not. Yea, I sought him, but he could not be found. Now, this one does not say that he's old, but borrowing from verse 25, which says he's old, this one would make sense because in verse 35, he's been around long enough to see the wicked come into power and then disappear. So he has witnessed something. So if this is David, it would have to be David getting closer to the end of his life. Would that offer any insight in how to interpret it? If it's not David, who does it matter? Is this a situation where, man, we need to know the human author, and this would greatly help? I think there are some passages, knowing the human author and knowing the historical situation surrounding it is of great significance. You can determine how important it would be to know who the human author is of Psalm 37. You can try to figure that out for yourself, all right? The person goes on. So that's all about who is the author. Next, is the psalm potentially written from the perspective of someone wise in the faith? Verse 25 and 35. I think this is possible, if not someone long in the faith, someone who has seen the passage of time and the fruits of wickedness versus righteousness ripening in the lives of people. Now, I'm going to strongly emphasize that point this time. I do believe the best way to interpret Psalm 37, and I'm willing to change my mind. I think, and I just listened to a number of sermons early this morning on Psalm 37, and none of them mentioned it. And I think that's problematic. I think we have to consider Psalm 37 as being written by someone offering a perspective. Now, I agree that it may be someone who's been walking with God for a long time, or it may be someone who's just seen the passage of time. They're older just in their physical age. But whatever the case may be, this is someone older reflecting on all the things that they have learned. I'm losing my voice there. Okay, I'm not hitting puberty. Okay, my voice is just tired. So I think it is someone who's been around for a while, and they have the wisdom that comes with age, right? And please note this, that anyone who's lived for a long period of time, they've gone through many different things. They've experienced good times, they've experienced bad times, they've experienced success, and they've probably experienced failure. If they've been walking with God for a long time, they have probably experienced times of great victory and power, and in times of defeat and shame. And I think that there is lessons to be learned from people, especially people who have been walking with God for a long time. But even older people, there's still lessons to be learned. So he says that I think it's possible, if not someone long in the faith, someone who has seen the passage of time and the fruits of wickedness versus righteousness ripening in the lives of people. Now he does talk something here about an action item, but that's him expressing something about himself, so I'm not going to share that, which I like the fact that he's willing to talk about a struggle that they have. Here's the outline they provide. Outline of Psalm 37. Here's what they outline it into three parts, if I can speak correctly. Here we go. Verses 1 through 9, commands to the righteous on how to behave. Verses 1 through 9, commands to the righteous on how to behave. Verses 10 through 24, the actions of the wicked will be countered by the Lord to the benefit of the righteous. This is verses 10 through 24. The actions of the wicked will be countered by the Lord to the benefit of the righteous. Verses 25 through 40, the fruits of righteousness led to blessing, while the fruits of wickedness leads to destruction. Or I should read it this way. The fruits of righteousness lead to blessings, while the fruit of wickedness leads to destruction. I think I said led. Okay. All right. So the fruits of righteousness lead to blessing, while the fruit of wickedness leads to destruction. So let's go through them again. Verses 1-9. Commands to the righteous on how to behave. Number 2, verses 10-24. The actions of the wicked will be countered by the Lord to the benefit of the righteous. Number 3, verses 25-40. The fruits of righteousness lead to blessing, while the fruits of wickedness lead to destruction. Now, here's the challenge, not only for the person who sent this to me, but for everyone else. Look at that outline and ask yourself, is that an observational outline or is it an interpretive outline? Right? I'm not going to offer any thoughts on which one it is. I'm not even going to offer any thoughts on anything about the outline, right? Because we're going to we're working through this right now kind of in a verse by verse way. So maybe when we're done, then we'll put an outline together. Maybe at some point in the middle, I'll put an outline together. It'll be interesting. It will also be interesting. I got to take a drink of water. We may do some sermon reviews. Well, we see how different pastors outline Psalm 37. I think in one of the sermons I listened to this morning, they were beginning a series working through Psalm 37, and I don't think they offered an outline of the chapter. They just immediately jumped in with verse 1 and 2. They just immediately jumped in with verse 1 and 2 and didn't even offer an outline, and they did not offer the perspective that Psalm 37 may be the way to understand this is the reflection of someone who's been around for a long time and maybe someone who's walked with God for a long time. They didn't even consider that. They just jumped right in to verse 1 and 2. So it's always interesting to hear the different approaches to this. So, well, yeah. Let's just jump in. Are you ready? I know that's a lot of work there, but I think there's some help there in that and some practical lessons. Are you ready? All right. This is going to be very straightforward this morning, and I'm going to give you basically most of the work here. Are you ready? All right, here we go. Psalm chapter 37. All right, verse 1. Now, we've already covered verse 1 and 2, but we'll cover them one more time. Fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity. Now, the idea of fret not thyself is the idea of anger, burning with rage. Do not be overwhelmed with anger and rage because of evildoers. Don't allow your anger to turn into something it should not be, dealing with evil workers. Right? Do not be envious against the workers of iniquity. Now, I just find it interesting that you have this idea of fret not is the idea of anger and rage, and then you have envy and jealousy. Now, I think it's interesting, and again, this is something that every person has to reflect for themselves. When you find yourself getting really angry at evil workers, you're really upset, you're really angry at them, and maybe you're justified that you have righteous indignation. Is it possible that sometimes your anger is more because of a deep-seated envy over what they're doing and the things they get to do? Now, I know that's nobody will want to answer in the affirmative. Nobody's going to want to say, well, I'm angry at these people because I'm jealous of them. Nobody wants to acknowledge that. We always, whenever we're upset with wicked people, we always say that we have righteous indignation. We have righteous anger. But I just think it's interesting that in Psalm 37:1, the fret not thyself, which again is burning anger, rage. It's a very intensive anger, is connected right with also envy. And I just think that there's something there that we have to consider. How much of our anger towards the wicked is really a jealous anger? Now, I think that sometimes our anger is not a jealous anger, and maybe it's even a righteous anger, but it slides over into a sinful anger because of the way we act and how we feel and how we think. Right? I think that's important. And then there's the idea of being jealous and envious. Right? Now, why should we not be burning with rage over the wicked and being jealous over them? because they shall soon be cut down like the grass and wither as the green herb. The reason we should not allow the wickedness of the world to so cause us problems is because we don't see things from a short-term perspective. We see things from an eternal perspective. An eternal perspective says, oh, look at the world. It's messed up. It's wicked. But there is a sense where we don't become jealous over it, and we don't become filled with a rage that actually is detrimental to our spiritual walk, because we understand that in the eternal perspective, that wicked will be met by God's judgment, and then God will make all things right in his time. So we must have an eternal perspective. All right, that leads us to verse 3. So instead of anger, instead of envy, what do we need to do? We need to trust in the Lord and do good, so shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed. Now, Psalm 37, verse 3, definitely seems to be placing this psalm, at least the instruction here, it sounds like instruction to Israel. This sounds like instructions to Israel. Hey, when you in the land, okay, when you go into the land to dwell the land, the promised land, trust in the Lord and do good. So it's interesting. There's two things we want to avoid: this burning rage and envy. We want to replace that burning rage and jealousy with trusting in the Lord and doing good. Let's focus on trusting in the Lord. Let's focus on trusting in the Lord. And I think a good way to do this is we'll just look up the word trust here, because I think this is the assignment I'm going to focus on here. If you go to Psalm 30, if you have the Blue Letter Bible app, everyone should have it. Pull up the Blue Letter Bible app, and interesting. Okay. I was looking at the Blue Letter Bible app, and I'm like, wait a minute, they translate that different. And I'm like, wait, I'm using the King James. Okay, now I was reading the wrong verse. I'm like, wait a minute, what? They removed the word trust. What's going on here? Okay, no, both have the word trust. All right, so let's pull up the word trust. I was like, wait a minute, what's happening? Did I pick up the wrong Bible? All right, here we go. Trust in the Lord. All right, the Hebrew word for trust is this.
Strong's H982. Batach.
All right. Batach is the Hebrew word that is translated trust in Psalm 37, verse 3. Trust in the Lord, batach. Now, it is used 120 times in the King James. It's translated in the following manner: trust 103 times, confidence 4 times, secure 4 times, confident 2 times, bold 1 time, careless 1 time, hope 1 time, hoped 1 time, ones 1 time, sure 1 time, and woman 1 time, which is really, really interesting, okay? But 103 times trust. Strong's definition for batach is interesting. For refuge, to trust, be confident or sure, be bold, secure, put confidence, make to hope. Basic idea. The outline for biblical usage is trust. All right, that's not helpful. To trust, to have confidence. That seems to be the idea. To have confidence. Be confident, to be bold, to be secure. It is a confident, think of it this way. It seems like batach here is the idea of a confident security, that you're trusting in God and you're confident and you are secure and trusting in him. Now, here's the question. Here's what I want you to think about. So you've got burning anger. Don't be filled with burning anger over evildoers. Do not be envious. Do not be envious against workers of iniquity. So there's anger. Think of it, anger and jealousy. We replace anger and jealousy with trusting in the Lord. with trusting in the Lord, with this confident security in God. Now, I want you to think about this, all right? Remember, Bible study exercise. How does trusting in the Lord remove burning anger and jealousy? I want you to think about this in a very practical way. All right, because trusting in the Lord, it sounds good. Everyone can say, trust in the Lord. And you can say that from the pulpit and everybody will say, amen. I'm trusting in God. Amen. Everyone will say, I'm trusting in God. I'm trusting in God. Everyone claims it, right? But I think sometimes it's just, it's called Christianese. We just learn to use this language. I'm trusting in God. We just know the words to say. But what does that mean in a practical way? Psalm 37 is giving you something practical. Here's your anger. Here's envy. Don't do that. And then in the next verse, he gives the psalmist gives us two things. Instead of those two things, replace it with trusting the Lord and doing good. So I want you to think about, how does trusting the Lord remove or eliminate that anger and that jealousy? Now, there's been a lot of anger amongst a lot of Christians. Very upset, very angry. Maybe they're upset and angry about the direction the country is going. They're upset and angry maybe about politicians. They're upset and angry about all the things happening within popular culture. They're just mad. But now I understand there's righteous indignation. I'm not saying that we should not have righteous anger. We should. But there is a wrong kind of anger that trusting in the Lord should help prevent and eliminate from us. So I want you to really think about this. I want you to come up with maybe 2 or 3 practical ways in which trusting the Lord should eliminate a wrong kind of anger and jealousy about the wicked. I want you to think of okay, I'm trusting in God. How should it resolve this? How should it fix this? Now, if you look up, if you have the Blue Letter Bible app, you're going to notice something. You've got the word batak again. You've got the outline of biblical usage. You've got the King James translation. You've got Strong's definition. You got the lexicon there. Oh, this is interesting. The Hebrew lexicon has this. This is interesting. To confide in anyone, to set one's hope and confidence upon anyone, to throw one down on his back, to throw in the face. All right. So it's interesting. It's to confide in, to set one's hope on. It's the idea of to throw one down on his back. It seems to be like, if I'm trusting in the Lord, I'm placing it upon God. I'm trusting God with it. I'm handing it over to him. I'm releasing it to him. Right? I'm releasing it to him. I'm trusting in him. I'll try to make this illustration work. I don't know if it will work perfectly, but hopefully it will make sense. I want you to listen to this, all right? Because this may be the most important thing I can say here. At about, I dropped my daughter off at the airport, I think it was about 4:10 a.m. when we got to the airport. After I left the airport, I realized I need gasoline. So I made it back to the corner convenience store / gas station right next to my house, right? And they've been having, ever since the massive winter storm hit Texas, where we lost power and water and crazy everything that happened during the winter here in Texas, this gas station, their gas pumps have just been a total mess. They don't work. I mean, just so many problems. But I'm like, I need gasoline, right? So I pulled in, I took out the debit card, and I put the debit card in. All right, put the debit card in, and it grabbed onto it, and it was locked. It was locked. And the pump, it wasn't doing anything. It didn't say authorizing your card, put in a PIN, put in your zip. It didn't do anything. It just took the card and it would not let it go. It would not let it go. And it wouldn't let me pump gas. So I go into the convenience store with a nice, friendly person who really believed in customer service, told me, that's your problem, not mine. I'm like, well, isn't it your problem? Because that's the gas pump for your store. And it's basically, I can't do anything about it. So I'm like, okay, well, thank you so much for your kind help this morning. I was thinking, is there a power button that you could power the thing down and maybe that would release the car? So I go back out there and I'm trying to pull on the card. And I'm getting irritated because it's like 4 something in the morning. And then all of a sudden I was like, it hit me. Oh, this is a good spiritual illustration. This is a good spiritual illustration, right? Because the gas pump is holding onto the cart and I'm trying to get it. It will not let it go. It will not let it go. It's holding on to it. Now, I kept pulling and pulling and pulling. Finally, and to be honest, there was part of me that wanted to just start kicking the thing, but of course that would not have been very godly. But I kept pulling and finally I was able to get the cart out and then I just left and I'm like, okay, find another gas station somewhere else. But I want you to think about this. To trust the Lord. Here's what we have a tendency to do. We're like the gas pump and we hold on to things. We hold on to them. We hold on to them and we will not let them go. We will not trust. In other words, that gas pump did not trust me with my own card. It took it and would not give it back to me. It did not trust me with it. It was like, nope, you can't have it. I've got it. And that's what we do with God. We're like, Lord, I trust you. And you can't see my hands, but I've got my fist clenched. I trust you, Lord, but not with any of the things I'm currently holding in my hands, right? I trust, not with this. I trust you, right? I'll try to give another illustration, right? I have in my study at my house, some nice stereo equipment because I love music, right? I'm not here to get into an argument about music, but I love music, all right? But guess what? I don't trust anyone with it. There's people I would say, oh, I trust you, but I trust you to come into my house, but do not walk into my study. Okay. If I'm not there, I don't trust you with my stereo equipment. Don't get near it. Don't go in there. I trust you anywhere else in the house. I don't trust you with that. See, I trust you, but there's a limit to my trust. We say we trust God, but I think there are things that we hold on, we cling on to. We are holding on. I'm holding on to them. Now, if we put this in the context of Psalm 37, the idea is, you know what? I don't think we sometimes trust God to deal with the wicked. I don't think we trust God to work that we're like, no, Lord, we have to do something. So we try to fight the wicked, maybe politically. We try to come up with all these. Are we trusting God to work things out according to his will and purpose? We become envious because, well, Lord, I want my life to be like theirs. Look at how great their life is. They're wicked, and look at all the things that they get. Do we trust that the Lord knows best, and he will give to us the life that he wants for us for whatever reason? Are we trusting in him with our life, the quality of our life? Are we trusting him to deal with the wickedness of this world? What are we not handing over to him? What are we not handing? You know what? A lot of times we don't hand over. Look, I don't know in your life. I cannot speak to you. But I know in my life, I've experienced failure and sin as a Christian, right? Failure, sin, shame, embarrassment. You know what? I can hold on to that guilt. I can hold on to that shame. I can hold on to that embarrassment, and I can just hold on to it. But you know what? It's not going to do me any good. I have to just open my hands and say, Lord, I trust you. Take my guilt, take my shame, take my sin. I trust you with my guilt, with my shame. I trust you with my fears and my doubts. I trust you even with my failure. I trust you with everything. I trust you to confess to you everything. I trust you. What are you clinging to that you're not trusting God with? What are you clinging to? Now look, there's a lot of things I have a hard time trusting. There's some ways I trust God, and there's other ways I don't trust. I think we all do this. There are things that we trust God for, and there's things we don't trust God for. Right? I could just give example after example. I think we've all been there, but I definitely know that idea. Like, Lord, here's my mistakes and my sin and my failure. Please take it. But you know what? I hold on to it. I hold on and live with that guilt and live with that shame. And you just got to give it back you got to give it to God. You have to trust the Lord. You got to, in a sense, place it upon him. Trust him completely. I just find it interesting, and I think we sometimes forget this. The trust, it's almost like it's like, okay, don't fret, don't be angered, don't be burning with anger, don't be envious. All right, next, trust in the Lord. But I think that trust in the Lord it's a trust in the Lord and do good. It's two things that replace the two things in verse 1. I really think we should see it that way. Now, maybe you've always seen it that way. Maybe I'm not offering anything new. If I'm offering something that you're like, oh, I've never thought about that, please let me know, because I think it's an interesting way to see this. Trust in the Lord and do good. Now, here's what I want you to do. Now, the word the trust here is used. It's used 120 times in the Hebrew word batak, I should say, is used 120 times and 117 verses. All right, I'm not going to make you go through all 120. If I even said that, you would laugh at me. But I would challenge you to do this. If you're using the Blue Letter Bible app, go down to the bottom of the page and scroll down, and you're going to see that the first place batak is used in Psalm. Used in the book of Psalms is Psalm chapter 4, verse 5, where you read, offer the sacrifices of righteousness and put your trust in the Lord. Now, I just think it's interesting that we have two things there. Offer the sacrifices of righteousness and put your trust in the Lord. It's interesting, two things are there. I don't know if there's any significance there, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to go from Psalm 4, look up every time the word trust or batak, actually, wherever batak is used. I think it's always used in the King James and Psalms. I think it's always trust or trusteth or trusted. But the bottom line is, if you use the Blue Letter Bible app, it's easy to find. You'll look up batak and then go down to the bottom, and you'll see all the places where it's used in the book of Psalms and the book of Proverbs. I want you to look up every reference for batak in Psalms and Proverbs. And I want you to just take a piece of paper and just kind of write down some basic lessons you learn about trusting God in the Psalms and Proverbs. Right? I'm not going to tell you how many points to write down. There's a lot of verses here. You just write them down. Whatever jumps out at you, some basic lessons. Because again, in Psalm 37, I got the anger, I got the jealousy. Now I need to replace it with trusting in the Lord. Well, what does that mean? What does that actually look like? Well, we got some idea from the meaning of the looking up the meaning of the Hebrew word, that it's a confident security. It's a confidence that leads to a secure trust in God. All right, it's a confidence. It's a security that comes from trusting God. It's placing it upon God. Lord, here you go. I'm letting it go, and I'm handing it over to you. And we need to hand so much over to God. But what else could it possibly mean? Well, look at how batak is used. Again, Psalm 4:5, offer the sacrifices of righteousness and put your trust in the Lord. Psalm 9:10, and they that know thy name will put their trust in thee. For thou, Lord, hast not forsaken them that seek thee. And they that know thy name will put their trust in thee. I said my name. And they that know thy name will put their trust in thee. For thou, Lord, hast not forsaken them that seek thee. Now, that's interesting. So there, what's connected with trust is knowing his name. Knowing, how does knowing God's name build trust? Right now, it says, if you look at it, and in fact, if you note this is interesting. Psalm 4:5, offer the sacrifices of righteousness and put your trust in the Lord, capital Lord. Of Psalm 9:10, and they that know thy name will put their trust in thee, for thou, Lord, capital Lord, hast not forsaken them that seek thee. Well, you can look up the Hebrew there for Lord. What name is that? Now, you may think you already know, but that's fine. Look it up. What is the meaning of that name, and how would that lead to trust? If trust seems to come with knowing. In other words, can you truly trust in God if you don't truly know him? If you don't know his attributes, his character, his works, his name, your trust in God will be greatly determined, or I'll put it this way, the level of your trust in God will greatly be determined by the level of your knowledge about him. See, I think there's a lesson to be learned right there. Psalm 13:5. But I have trusted in thy mercy. My heart shall rejoice in thy salvation. Trusting in God's mercy. We have to trust in God's mercy. We have to trust in his grace. We have to trust in his salvation. I can't trust in my works. I can't trust in anything. I got to trust in God. Look, I have to trust in God that if I confess my sins, he is faithful and just to forgive me my sins and cleanse me of all unrighteousness. I have to trust that he can restore, he can clean, he can place me back on the right road no matter how far I fall. He was able to do that with Peter, who denied him 3 times. He used David to write scripture even after David committed horrible sin. Solomon, even after all of his failure, is still used to write scripture. I got to trust in God's mercy. I got to trust in God's mercy. I can't trust in anybody else's mercy. I can't trust in anybody else's grace, but I can trust in his. Psalm 21:7, for the king trusteth in the Lord, and through the mercy of the Most High he shall not be moved. Psalm 22:4, our fathers trusted in thee, they trusted, and thou didst deliver them. I could go through all of them. There's your assignment. Trust in the Lord. Okay. Again, the Hebrew, I'll play the Hebrew word one more time for you. The Hebrew word is this.
Strong's H982. Batach.
Batak. I think I always say Batak, but Batak. Okay. West Texas. Okay. Batak, not Batak. Batak. Okay. So I apologize. I was saying it incorrectly. All right. So see, it was good that I played it, right? I was playing it for your benefit, but ultimately it was for my benefit. Batak, not Batak. All right. Batak. All right, but the bottom line is, I want you to look up every place that it is used in the book of Psalms and the book of Proverbs. And I want you to just take a piece of paper, Batak, and which is translated trust, trusted, trusteth, depending on the verse that it's found in. And if it's translated something different, that's fine. You can look at it. But we're looking basically when it's translated for trust. And I want you to see everything you can learn about trusting God in Psalms and Proverbs. All right? Batak. All right? I want you to really, really think about that. Okay? And I want you to really meditate on it. Now, let's go back to Psalm 37, verse 3. Trust in the Lord and do good, so shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed. All right? I want to say something about doing good, but let's just focus on the trusting aspect now. And again, but I want you to consider, so a couple of things. How does trusting in the Lord, in a sense, overcome the anger and the jealousy in verse 1? I really, 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 really want you to contemplate that. I really want you to contemplate that. And then I want you to spend the time looking up every place Batak is used in Psalms and Proverbs. I think it's going to be translated trust, I think pretty much every time, or some version of trust. And I want you to just write down, what did you learn about trusting God in the book of Psalms and the book of Proverbs? And then ask yourself, are you truly trusting in the Lord? Are you truly trusting in the Lord? All right. Very simple, very basic, very straightforward, but there you have it. Now, we didn't make it very far. I know we did not make it very far, but that's okay. All right. That's okay. And also, you can, work on the outline, you can go with the outline that was given. You can say, okay, I do believe it's 3 parts, but I would classify them different, or I believe it's 4 parts, whatever. You can email me your outline, newsif@yahoo.com. You can, you can send me any of the work that you've done, or if you have any questions. If there's something that confuses you, let me know, and we will definitely work through it. All right. Thank you for tuning in to this Bible study exercise for this Tuesday morning, June the 29th. May God bless you as you study His Word. God bless.